Twitter, Facebook, the enormous power of social media has never been so clear since rioters stormed the US Capitol in Washington. Are the platforms out of control? And what role has opened up for new players like Parler and Mevi? Today on Shift. US President Trump pretty much governed by tweet. He used Twitter to speak directly to his almost 90 million followers. Among them were fans and foes, people in politics, in business, and from the press. A win-win situation for Trump and Twitter for a long time. But now, social media has suddenly put the brakes on by blocking his accounts. Private companies are banning the world's most powerful men from speaking out. What does it mean when digital corporations have this much influence?
The Twitter account @RealDonaldTrump had 89 million followers. Now all that's left of his beloved megaphone and weapon of choice is his Twitter handle. Trump fired off 12,200 tweets in 2020 alone, often with alarming content.
Let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all.
With just a few words on Twitter, Trump was able to mobilize his supporters, who recently even stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Trump praised them on the popular social media site. By silencing Donald Trump, Facebook and Twitter helped to accomplish what police and politicians basically failed to do: prevent a further escalation in violence. Social media outmaneuvered the president. But this raises new questions. Should social media posts be blocked? If so, which posts and who gets to decide? Meanwhile, Trump tweeted from other accounts, rallying support and planning further action. Twitter has deleted his tweets and stated that any other account he uses will be subject to suspension. But with many other platforms within his reach, it won't be hard to make his voice heard.
Or he could just set up his own platform. Well, that's one way to stop people from silencing him. Many right-wing conservatives had already jumped ship from Twitter and Facebook anyway, because of blocking and alleged censorship, and headed for alternative platforms like MeWe, Gap and Parler. And it was on Parler in particular that many radical Trump supporters rallied to storm the Capitol. This is what it looked like.
They shared photos of themselves storming the Capitol. They made fun of frightened politicians and threatened them with violence. Violent hate speech has been trending on the platform Parler, with calls to kill the pedophile elites, hang them and tighten the noose, with social media users who want to crash the system and throw politicians behind bars, or worse. A group on the Gab network says that when democracy becomes tyranny, being armed is the only option. And of course, there have been plenty of misogynistic and sexist insults flying around. Also in the firing line of these alternative platforms, the media and major social networks. Users believe that they've been infiltrated by communists and that global elites are systematically suppressing the truth. Anyone caught in these circles could be led to believe it's all a big conspiracy against the patriotic Americans.
These opinions were so extreme that Apple and Google removed the Parler app from their app stores. Amazon immediately cut its hosting services to Parler. The network is now temporarily offline. Parler sued Amazon against what they say is a politically motivated decision. Why is this particular platform being held to account? At the same time, the hashtag #HangMikePence went viral on Twitter shortly after the Capitol was stormed. And extreme conspiracy videos are still as widely available as ever on YouTube. Moderating content is a tricky business and not exactly a success story yet. Apps like Parler market themselves as mediators of unbiased news and an alternative to the big players, a place where users have freedom. And the users take this one step further, as this post shows. But if you're thinking that only trigger-happy right-wing extremists prowl these alternative platforms, then think again. The main investor in the network, which was founded in 2018, is Rebecca Mercer. The Mercer family are among Trump's biggest supporters. Many opinion leaders and Republican politicians now have Parler accounts. There are liberal groups on the alternative web as well. Tim Berners-Lee is on MeWe's advisory board, the man who's generally credited with inventing the World Wide Web and a long-time campaigner for a freer internet. The call for freedom of speech is, of course, not just the right-wing phenomenon.
One conspiracy theory making the rounds is that Microsoft founder Bill Gates unleashed the coronavirus so that he could implant everyone with a chip and establish a new world order. Facebook and Twitter have been removing this content and banning the users who push it online, like Donald Trump. That is why tech startups like Parler have surged in popularity. Founded 2 years ago, this Twitter alternative recorded more than 500,000 downloads in a single week. The social network MeWe climbed to third place in the Apple and Google app stores because both allow content that is now banned on Twitter and Facebook. There's been a flurry of posts and comments making wild speculations about the side effects of the COVID-19 vaccine. They warn against vaccinating children, even though the vaccine has not yet been tested on them and isn't approved for anyone under the age of 16. Mark Weinstein is the founder of MeWe.
What we allow is freedom of speech and common rules of decency. So if on MeWe you have an opinion about whether a vaccine is effective or not, and you are not posting hate content, inciting violence, bullying, breaking the law, then that's none of our business. This is social media. This is what Section 230 is all about. It protects freedom of speech.
This is also important to conservative Paul Hubel. He believes that Democrats stole the US presidential election. We watched him open a MeWe account. He firmly believes that Facebook and Twitter want to stifle voices like his.
I joined them. I was so tired of going to Facebook jail, but I want the liberals there too. I want to hear what they have to say. Cannot have a discourse where we're frank to each other, tell each other the truth, if one of us is always being shut down.
But so far, Hubel's attempts to find a spectrum of political opinions on the new alternative social networks have been in vain. The only follower suggestions he receives on Parler are right-wing conservatives like Fox News presenter Hannity, Phil Robertson from the reality TV show Duck Dynasty, and Donald Trump. When Twitter banned Trump, he swiftly joined Parler. These new social networks are also quickly becoming dangerous echo chambers.
Echo chamber, that's something you hear a lot at the moment. I think Twitter, Facebook, etc. have played a crucial role in dividing society. For years they've been luring their customers into these bubbles, showing them only what aligns with their worldview to keep them on their platform for longer and make more money from them. Controversial and shocking clips are rife because they hold the user's attention. Perhaps it's no wonder that some users see the current intervention as an infringement of their freedom and are looking for other spaces where they're not silenced. Until now, US platforms have not been required to moderate or censor content, thanks to a law that was established in the 1990s. One that a cybersecurity expert describes as the 26 words that created the internet.
Silicon Valley is home of social media networks, and Section 230 is the foundation they rest upon. It states that companies like Facebook and Twitter are not liable for the content posted on their platforms. This section of the US Communications Decency Act is seen by many as a carte blanche to publish anything and everything. But these sites might soon have this immunity diminished. Their position as impartial publishers would be history. It would mean big changes for users too. We met Eric Goldman in the heart of Silicon Valley, Mountain View. He's a law professor and trains lawyers to work with tech companies. He says platforms cannot be held responsible for all content.
So Section 230 has become a euphemism for the broader phenomenon of techlash. There's a lot of anger towards the existing internet incumbents and feeling like they have too much power and that they're wielding that power in a poor way. And Section 230 is viewed as the tool that they rely upon in order to engage in this abusive activity.
There are several bills that address the Section 230 reform. The proposed changes would affect three key areas: which content can be removed, to whom does Section 230 apply, and how will companies monitor online content in breach of regulations.
A third category is to try and impose some kind of procedural governance over internet services, to say whatever content you're dealing with, this is the way in which we want you to manage your content moderation operation. So something like the PACT Act that says you have to provide people who want to complain about content a phone number. And if you remove content, you have to tell the people whose content was removed why it was removed.
Perhaps with these extra, more transparent, widely available channels of communication for reporting inappropriate content, users would think twice before posting in the first place. Goldman is critical of the reforms though, saying they won't keep tech giants in line, but they will drive startups and smaller companies into financial ruin.
Wikipedia is another fine example. How do we have a user-edited encyclopedia in a world where the operator of that service is liable for whatever problems are created by their users? It simply doesn't exist. What's the world look like if we take away Wikipedia? We take away services like Reddit that let us talk to each other and explore conversations that we're not having anywhere else.
The internet has, of course, opened up new horizons of possibilities. But right now, social media is like an uncontrollable tidal wave of fake news and hate speech, with serious consequences for all of us. It's an almost impossible conflict to resolve. But for me, one thing is clear. The decision about what can and cannot be said should not lie with private companies. And we as users need to sharpen up, fact-check, burst our social media bubbles, listen to people's opinions that contradict our own, and report hate speech to the operators. It's worth our time. What do you think? Do you support complete freedom of speech, or do you think content should be moderated? Is it okay to ban someone after they've been warned, or is that censorship? Let us know on Facebook, YouTube, or on dw.com. That's all from me. See you next time.